Good evening, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as at Risk for Rewards. Currently got around 21,000 followers over there and sat with about 1,900 here on YouTube. We are coming into the national hunt season. So if you're not following and you do enjoy your horse racing content, whether it's anti-post or day-to-day racing, then if you're linked to subscribe here on YouTube, it just means as soon as any videos go live, then you'll get them straight to your phone, provider, laptop, however you watch them. It just means you don't have to worry about subscribing, looking through to try and find content. You'll just get it straight to your phone. So today I am here to talk straight up national hunt racing. So this week has sparked plenty of debate. Obviously, not so much because the national hunt racing is back. You would think it is the way that Twitter's got very excited overnight. It's more the fact that we're just starting to receive all the news. I checked last year and the stable tours started coming out mid-October. And this year they're not out yet, but we've started to get some pretty hefty news. Obviously, Nicky Henderson dealing the first blow with Constitution Hill going over the champion hurdle route, which I think many expected by the time the answer come out. But if you'd asked most people after the champion hurdle, I think many were thinking it could go either way. It wasn't really until he went to Aintree, and I'm not saying he didn't stay. It was just the fact that he wasn't as impressive over the 2 mile 4 trip. But that could have been a combination of the season. It could have been the 4 weeks ago he'd had a hard run. I know he won the champion hurdle very easily, but they still can have a hard run. And you're never as good as you are at Cheltenham generally. Well, most horses, they try and get them to peak there. But at the end of the day, decision has been made. Brilliant for racing, and it looks like he's already got two lively contenders. Because straight after that, 3 or 4 hours later, bookmakers got to cut the prices to smithereens, and then 4 hours later, they get to cut the prices again without pushing Constitution Hill out. So what they've done now is they've just cut the prices of another horse, and that is Impere Pass. I think many, including myself, were expecting Impere Pass to go over fences. It wasn't so much that I just thought he's built for fences over hurdles. It was just the fact that it looked an obvious port of call. He didn't strike me as a hurdler, an out and out hurdler. He was very impressive in the Ballymore, which Willie has obviously gone the 14 route before, Ballymore champion hurdle. But at the same time, he looked like he needed every inch of the 2 mile 4 when he was very unimpressive in Punchestown. But like great horses, they get the job done, and he did get the job done despite being very average on the day compared to what he was at Cheltenham. Bearing in mind, obviously at Cheltenham, he beat the likes of Group 1 winners of Champ Kiley. Obviously in second was Gaelic Warrior, absolutely thumped, who then went to Punchestown and absolutely bolted up over 3 miles. So it is strong form, and he is a lively contender in the champion hurdle. So where do we read the lines for that? It's hard to tell. Is he burning up the gallops? Is he beating State Man? Is it more the fact that he just suits that profile because he's a young horse? Because they've come out in the last few days and they've said that they just wanted another year to strengthen him up, mature him, give him a year over hurdles, and then they can go chasing with him next year, which he's still going to be in his prime next year, providing everything goes to plan. So it's not the end of the world. And I guess we'll just see how he gets on. It's just interesting. It's just very different for racing because I think most people, especially Willie Mullins, looking at maximising the pot, how many winners can get. And I know everyone says Cheltenham's not the be all and end all, but it's also about the progression all the way up there. What pots has he got? A lot of the way here, he's now going to have to try and avoid State Man unless Willie's just going to run him both of them all the way along. But I don't see that myself. So interesting for racing. But what makes it more interesting is the novice chase sphere, because that's blown the turners wide open. It's meant that a few horses that may have been certainties to go to the Arkle might now switch to the 2 mile 4. And obviously the Brown Advisory is already double figures the field. So it makes the racing incredibly interesting, and it gives us punters a chance to look at the antepost, do a bit of research, try and get a bit of luck, and try and find a few big prices. I know a lot of people just go on and say the antepost market's dead. I'm not here to stand there and dispute and argue with them and stuff. Like, we've seen the results. You can either find them still or you can't. Yeah, of course it's harder. Like, you look at the prices, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Prime example was obviously Constitution Hill situation. They cut the price of that horse and he's now sat probably, I don't know, 1 to 2, 4 to 9. But in reality, when they heard the Impere Pass news, surely Constitution Hill should have drifted back out a little bit, even if it was only a point, like say 1 to 2 out to 8 to 15 or 4 to 7. If you're bringing horses like Impere Pass from 10 to 1 into 6 to 1, but that's just not the way it works. Anti-post, once they go in, it's very rare you see them go back out. And the game is getting harder and harder. Like, you look at Marine Nationale, sat there at 2 to 1, 5 to 2 generally. that horse would have been 4 or 5 to 1. I mentioned on Twitter the other day, you look back at Shishkin and Sam Crow when they, no, not Sam Crow, Envoy Allen, when they went through their novice chasing divisions, having looked world beaters at Cheltenham, winning the novice hurdles a year before. And both of them were like between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1, all the way through the summer 4 to 1, 5 to 1. And around now, they've just still been 3 to 1 to 5 to 1. And those two had obviously had very little to beat, and they just blitzed everything in front of them. I think they were both sent off about 4 to 9 for their novice chase victory. Well, obviously Envoy Allen fell, but for their assignments at Cheltenham in the end. So it's just the way the game's changed. There's nothing we could do. There's no point complaining about it. So get a smile on your face, because at the end of the day, 3 weeks and it's Chepstow. Obviously, we are on a little bit of a hold at the moment. We're starting to get news through. I've had a look through, and the stable tours came out last year about mid-October, which is why I'm keen to get this video out, because a lot of people, as they know, on my website is coming next week. So this today is going to chat about my plans for the future for this national hunt season going forward, and obviously into the summer and the like. So there's 3 different areas. So the first area is obviously the website. I've mentioned it before. It is going to be, I hope it's going to be quite a good website. It's took some time building. It is going to be very similar in the way that I'll have a Cheltenham blog, but there's going to be a lot more to it in the fact that there's going to be plenty of stuff on there. Once it does go live, I will go through, do a YouTube, full interactive explanation of what you can expect from there. But just for a little bit of rough guidance, it's going to be a mixture of both videos and written content on the weekly and also for anti-post selections. It's not going to be too different from what you've seen in the past, where I go into the detail explaining why I've backed a horse. And also on the weekends, it's not going to be a tipping site, like as in, by that I mean obviously there will be horses that I've backed, but I mean if you're coming across because you want to find out who's going to win Plumpton on a Tuesday, it's just not going to be the case. I'd imagine I probably will not have anything anywhere like Monday to Thursday normally, unless there's horses that I think that might go to Cheltenham. So things like that, I will always be on the hunt. Say you, and there's going to be a notes page. It will say these horses are running on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You would like to watch these with regard to this. And then obviously I've got reviews. So I've got the review I carried out in April of the Cheltenham 2023 festival and the bets I had off the back of that. And I'm also going to be carrying out, obviously at the start of October, before the stable tours, I'll be carrying out another review of where my head's at with all the big races across the Cheltenham festival. It's a little bit different this time in the fact that I'm going to have a couple of sections. There'll be the Cheltenham blog, which obviously has on each day, it will have which horses I've already backed for the festival. But there's also going to be a shortlist section / free bet section, which is going to be horses that I think are likely to go somewhere. I think they're good value at the prices and they're strong contenders for those races, but I just haven't backed them yet because maybe we haven't got word. So for example, a horse that might be say 33 to 1 for a Supreme and 25 to 1 for the Ballymore, and I think it's got a really strong chance in the Supreme but not the Ballymore. Some people would say, well, just back it for the Supreme then if you don't like it for the Ballymore. But if you just wait those extra couple of days, it'll come out in the stable tour. They might turn around and just give you that snippet and say 2 miles will be for him all season or for her all season. And if that's the case, then you save yourself the putting 2 bets on back in the Supreme and Ballymore. So it's just, but on those cases, you may not have that information yet, but it allows people to make their own decisions early on. There's going to be obviously all my blogs will still be on there. My results will still be on there. So if people want to look through and vet stuff, have a look at stuff, see how I operate. But generally with regard to the website, it is going to be obviously behind closed doors, but it's going to be aimed at people who hopefully have followed me for whether it's since Cheltenham this year through Aintree, through the Corach Rambler days, or whether it's through the last year, 2 years, 3 years. More so because you know how I operate, you know what you're getting. I'm not here to sell something to someone and say, oh, I'm Pete, I can promise you the world, I'm going to show you 1 million winners, I'm going to do this, because that's just not the case. The only reason it's going behind closed doors is because it just takes so much time off my hands. I could go and look at the horses that I'd like and I could place all the selections myself and just have at it. But if from now, because of the sort of, well, I like to think that the sort of people that I have got following me on Twitter, if I put something up, people are wondering, well, why has he only put just a name? And then I'll get questions, I'll get DMs, I'll get messages saying, well, where do you think it will go, or do you think it will go on the ground, or do you think this? So it's very difficult because I've always explained myself, I've always put definition, and I think that's the best thing that you can do. I'd never stand here and tell people how to put selections up because that's just not the case. And there's different people that, again, as I go back to my point before, different people do things different ways and they're better in different ways. Anyway, so the bottom line is the website, the aim is for it to be launched next Thursday, in theory, hopefully, but we shall see. But I will be up. I will be back to update Wednesday or Thursday with further news. Hopefully, it will go live as soon as it goes live. I will let you know. I will do a little bit of a video just to show a bit of a walkthrough, just so people can just see how easy it is to use. So a lot of people behind closed doors, are you going to have to pay for that? Blah blah blah. I'm not here to turn around and say, oh, okay, like every person is different. Some people have got no interest in anything that goes behind the closed doors or you pay for anything towards horse racing. I've got friends that are the same, and I totally appreciate that. And you don't have to be at the end of the day. There is more than enough content, detail, and information out there that you don't need to be. But what I'm trying to say is going the other way, I'm doing two different things. So my Twitter will not change. So Twitter, you'll be able to access everything that you can see and you have done in the past with regard to, I know people would like, well, you might not feel like you get a lot off Twitter. Twitter, I still put an awful lot of stuff on there. I'll still say there's horses running here. This horse might run here. This is a non-runner and you may want to cash out. Oh, that horse is definitely going to win race A. And I'll still be on Twitter exactly the same. I'll still be chatting back and forth with all the banter of the Twitter crowd. The thing that's going to change slightly is my YouTube. So with my YouTube, I am going to be looking at I believe some of racing's finest across the Twitter sphere. So this isn't me putting down anyone who I don't have on the channel or I don't ask to have on the channel. Some people might not want to come on the channel. It's just the fact that people that I know, I get along with, and that I know, as in I've backed their selections because I know they're more than capable. And I don't like to put anything up on my Twitter or that's why I've got no affiliate feeds on this YouTube link or no sponsorship. Is I don't like to put anything up that I don't use myself. So I'm going to have people on from Twitter who are probably people who you might log onto your Twitter and you see, oh, okay, blah blah blah's put his selections up for Saturday and Sunday. But you might not know anything about them. You're like, oh, I wonder how he got to that conclusion. I wonder how he does that, or why does he always pick those sort of horses? So, and these people are going to hopefully come on the Twitter, sit here, have a live chat with myself, and it's going to be question time. It's going to be obviously easier for me, but I'm going to ask some questions on a little bit about them so people can understand a bit more. Like, where's your favourite racetrack, jumps or flat? Favourite racehorse, few of the basics, but then into a bit more detail. How do you like to punt? Do you have certain types of races you like to focus on? Do you have any good anti-post bet? As in, did you have any good anti-post winners last year at the Cheltenham Festival? What's your biggest bet you've won? Are just things that are a little bit interesting, a little bit different, but also mixed in with obviously the generic chit chat. So they'll be sat down with them. Obviously, say it's the weekend after Chepstow. We're like, right, did you see any horses that you liked from Chepstow? Any pointers going forwards to the next 3 weeks? What about any pointers for going through for the rest of the season? Is there any horses that you thought were major hyped over after Chepstow that you just couldn't have on your mind to win for the rest of the season? It's just doing things a little bit different. Everything that I'm trying to do with regards to racing are things that when I first come here 10 years ago, they weren't around and they still aren't. So I'm just trying to get things a little bit more different. I could stand here and say to you, these are my 10 to follow for the season. I could then go and watch Chepstow and say, this horse was an eye catcher, this horse was an eye catcher. But you don't get any passion, you don't get any sort of honest, aggressive opinions. Like, you don't get someone turning around to you and saying, this horse is not going to win again. And obviously it sparks controversy if you put it on Twitter. But when you're sat there having a debate with someone, yeah, okay, a few people are going to put a few comments on there, but that's what we're here for. But it's people saying, and you might see, whoever the guest is, they might say, right, this is going to happen. And you think, and you start looking through and you're like, hang on a minute, that is going to happen. I'm going to take that price that he's just mentioned for that race. I don't know, say it's King George. Do you know what? That is going to cut up, and I do think that horse is going to do that, and I'm going to take the 16s on it. And that's what it's about. I know it's all about Cheltenham, and there will be a lot of Cheltenham chat with each guest. They will give them obviously a couple of backs, a couple of lays, etc. But it will also be about the general horse racing on the whole, and it'll also be about, as I said, a little bit about them. So we're going to see how it goes. So my first guest, I don't know when it'll be. Might be probably, don't know, maybe a couple of weeks once we do get the national hunt going, but we shall see. Might come on and talk about the Arc, and how it might affect Ascot Champions Day. So maybe get a first guest in 2 weeks, but we shall see. But my first guest is going to be at Racing Lee. So a few of you might know him from Only Fools Love Horses and obviously from Twitter. But he's unfortunately said that he will be my first guest. He was happy to. So we'll just see how we go. So a little bit of change for the national hunt season. So yeah, on the whole, that is it. I'm going to keep it short. Absolutely zero interest in any racing this weekend for me. It's one of those weekends where you just want to get stuff done because it's going to be chaos coming up. You've got like Newbury, Newmarket, Ascot Champions Day. You've got the Arc. The Arc's next weekend. Then you've got Breeders' Cup. And all of those things come. And then in 3 weeks' time, you've got Chepstow. A weekend after or 2 weeks after, you've got Cheltenham's October meeting. Yeah, I said it. Cheltenham's October meeting. And that's it. We're back in business. So in less than, in fact, Cheltenham, it might even be Chepstow. No, I think Chepstow is 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks this weekend. And then Cheltenham October meeting is obviously the weekend after or the weekend after that. So it's going to come thick and fast. So enjoy your weekend, whatever you end up doing. I'll be back next week. And I hope you enjoy the racing content. If you're not subscribing, obviously the link below is to subscribe. And if you're not following on Twitter, then you can follow at Risk for Rewards. So I hope you have a good weekend, and I will be back next week.